Super. Okay, so we are discussing VMware ESXi. So kind of we are going through the topics. Okay, so we started cluster. Okay, in the last week. I mean, in the last class. Okay, cluster. Cluster with HA and DRS, right? Cluster. So we enabled HA, we enabled DRS. Okay, and I hope you understand what are the advantages of that. Okay. So I'll talk some more small features today, maybe mostly theoretical. So things are like, many things are like we don't have practical. Okay, I can say you can't see everything practical. Many things need a license. Okay, so that's why we cannot see practical, even we don't have that license actually. So at least I'll try to get some good video, okay, YouTube video to understand that practical, but theoretically I'll explain a couple of things today. Okay, so just let me know you're able to see the screen. Okay, I'm logging into our VMware, our vCenter server. So completely about vCenter. Okay, so in the last class, right, we created a cluster. Okay, first we created a data center. So there are two ways. Okay, one is add ESXi host directly under data center. Another one is add ESXi host, okay, under data center, create a cluster, add this host under the cluster. Okay, you're understanding, right? So when you added under the data center, so data center is this test. Okay, this class is cluster. Now if you see, the ESXi hosts are there under class, I mean cluster, and if you go there under 100.2 I have one VM, under 100.4 I have one more, 100.6 I have one, 100.8 I have two VMs. Okay, so if you remember the migration, when we tried between server 1 and server 4, okay, server 1 is the Intel processor. Okay, you are seeing here, right? The server 1 I selected. When I click on the summary, the processor is Intel processor. Server 4, okay, it is a AMD processor. Okay, so when you are seeing this, right, don't think of what and all are there. Okay, so whatever I am telling you, so just understand that paths, note down that paths, and whenever you get a chance, you try that. Really, if you ask me what is there under monitor, even I can't tell everything. Okay, even I can't tell everything. I am not a VMware admin, but I do testing on the VMware servers, so I know like whatever is required for us. So just I'm not telling like you should not learn or anything, but whatever I am teaching, try to understand that. Don't go like whenever I click on this, people started thinking, what are these tabs and what is this data? I am seeing some diagrams, some green, yellow. Okay, colors are there, some blue color is there. Okay, don't think too much. Okay, it's very, very simple. VMware is very simple. Everything is there on, everything is there on complete, UI only. Okay, it's very, very nice. Okay, so coming back, so migration, we were unable to do migration between server 1 and server 4 because server 1 is having Intel processor, server 2 has AMD processor. And in that class, I told like we cannot do this migration, right? But I'm just changing my words now. Okay, I mean, just for better understanding, right? I said that time it's not possible. Even now I'm telling, if the hosts are under data center between different vendor processors, okay, it is not possible. Between different vendor processor, it is not possible when both the ESXi servers under one, I mean under data center. Okay, but now the hosts are under class, okay, which is okay cluster. Now 100.2, if you see server 1, I have a single VM. I'll do one thing. From 100.4, there are 2 VMs. I will migrate, okay, this server 1 cloned VM, right? I'll migrate from 100.4 to, I mean, sorry, server 4 to server 1, okay, which was failed that time. You remember, right? Even I have that log with me. So when we try to, so this is the log. When we try to migrate, okay, we got this log, right? So what it say, like a CPU. So clearly telling like enhanced vMotion compatibility enabled to create uniform of CPU. So simply it is telling there is a problem with CPUs. So you cannot migrate between, okay, 2 CPUs, 2 different vendor CPUs. Okay, so just check now. So right click on the VM, which is there under 100 server 4, right? Server 4. Select, change both compute resource and storage. Click next. So it is looking for the server where to move. See, now straight away it is telling compatibility checks. If you remember that log, actually we got it here only. That day when we try to migrate from server 1 to server 4, that log we got it here only. So it said CPUs are not proper, CPUs are not identical. So that's the reason we are unable to continue. So the compatibility failed on that day. Okay, just click next. Now select data store. Yes, we have sufficient data store and the compatibility check succeeded. Click next. So select any network, the network what is there. Select next, finish it. See, relocate is started. Relocation is started. That means the migration is happening now between 2 different vendor CPUs. 2 different vendor CPUs, the migration is happening. Okay, almost 29% completed. It will be done in another 3-4 minutes. So what is the question? Like if I ask you, what is the requirement for vMotion? Okay, if you see here, I have written something like ESXi server should be added to the vCenter server. All the servers should be in the same network, blah, blah. VMware tools should be installed. But you can tell that, okay, you can tell that the, okay, CPUs should be identical. CPUs should be identical. Identical means same CPUs. So when I say same CPUs, don't think Intel, suppose if I take Intel 5118, if I have in server 1, I should have same Intel 5118. That is not the case. Okay, in Intel, we have different groups. Suppose Intel Xeon, okay, if I have any Intel Xeon, no need to do anything, it will get migrate. Okay, Intel Xeon. Same way, if I go to AMD Riser, this is there. AMD, what is that? 1 second. EPYC, okay, AMD EPYC. So any processor under this EPYC, you see this number, different processors you see. But AMD EPYC, any CPU, it can transfer, I mean, it can migrate, okay, when they are not in the cluster. Okay, when I say same CPU, they should be Intel Xeon, Intel, there are some more. I'll share that information also. So any family of Intel okay, we can do migrate. Within that family, we can do migrate. Simple, right? So migration is in process. It is almost 38% completed. Okay, so this is one more advantage of cluster. Okay, one more advantage of cluster. Any question so far? Any question? Previous, like we discussed HA, DRS, and I'll give some notes actually for that HA and DRS. Okay, there are small internal things are there. So you try to understand from that notes, is that enough? And how to do enable that HA, how to enable DRS, you understand? And how to create cluster, how to install vCenter, how to add ESXi servers to cluster is definitely more than enough. Okay, don't think. So if you get in right, if you get in depth, right, you will see so many topics. Okay, so really we want that, I say no. Okay, not required. So just simple, understand the things. Okay, when we are going for interview, right? So we have to talk about everything, and you have to talk in like as you did a practical. Okay, so whatever we are doing practical, right, you feel like you are doing that, and whatever steps I did it right, you make a note of them and just explain that steps when you are doing. Okay, whatever I'm doing, all latest servers, the OS is latest, the vCenter is latest. Okay, somebody asks you, if you tell what you did exactly, so that is more than enough for, to prove you have a practical knowledge, right? See here, this is done actually, right? It's completed, right? So the cloning is done. So then check this, click on VMs. So the server, the VM is here. It's migrated. It's migrated, right? Okay. So point is, if I have a cluster, if the ESXi servers are under cluster, you can do migration. You can do migration from any vendor processor to any vendor processor. Okay. And other points, other requirements should be matched. Okay. If there is no sufficient resource, even cluster cannot do anything. If you don't install VMware tools on the VM which you are migrating, cluster cannot do anything. Right? So that and all mandatory. Only the CPU, the identical CPU, like okay, if the ESXi servers are under cluster, right? Okay. I'll go with one more topic. I don't know I can enable or not. So let's see. So you understand HA, right? High availability. In HA, what is happening? So suppose if I have two ESXi servers, so listen carefully. If I have two ESXi servers, if any one ESXi server go down for any reason, the VMs on that ESXi server will migrate to available ESXi server. That is the concept of HA, right? When the ESXi failed, the VMs will migrate to another available ESXi server or servers. Okay, if I have 10 servers, if I have 5 VMs, they can go anywhere. Okay, but here the biggest problem is the VMs go down. The VMs will be powered off. Okay, manually we have to log into vCenter and we have to power on that virtual machines. Manually we have to log into vCenter and we have to power on that virtual machines. We have to power on that virtual machines. That is the biggest problem in HA. Okay, so why it is the biggest problem? Suppose if that server, the VM is the production VM, for example, some company is using, some bank is using, for example, SBI is using one VM. So some customers are accessing that VM and they are working on that. So, but we made all the facilities, like we created where the VM is there, right? That ESXi server we added under the cluster and we enabled HA, DRS, everything. Okay. But when the HA, I mean, when the ESXi failed, right, the VM is safe. There is no problem. VM migrated from one server to other server, one ESXi to another ESXi. The data is safe, everything is safe, but only problem is that is down. Okay, so if it happens somewhere in the afternoon, 12 o'clock, which is very crucial time for banking, right? So what will happen? Again, they have to identify that what problem is come, and they have to power on, and they have to make necessary softwares, everything they have to make it up. Maybe we'll take 1 hour, altogether 1 hour. You know, if SBI application is down for 1 hour, for example, the SBI share value will go down. You know, the company reputation itself go down. This is the case. Really, this is the case. Don't think I am talking very too much, right? This is the case. So they don't want to go any system down. Okay, like IRCTC, where we are booking tickets. Okay, and like Facebook, YouTube, okay, Amazon Prime. These all are where we have social websites, right? They are maintaining physical servers, virtual servers, Windows, Linux. They are using almost all the operating systems, storage boxes, networking, whatever we are seeing, right? They are using everything actually. Okay, so everywhere they have to maintain a stable setup where if something happens also, their business has to run very smooth. Okay, so for that, we have one option called FT, fault tolerance. So first I'll show you the option. So I'll take the server 2, for example. I have a server 2, right click. I'll click on fault tolerance. Okay, turn on fault tolerance. Okay, just click turn on fault tolerance. Virtual link enabled for fault tolerance logging. Okay, so we'll enable that. Like vMotion, we have to enable FT also. Just click here. Okay, click on the server where the VM. Okay, you want to enable on server 2, right? So just go here, go to configure, click on networking, same option. Okay, so this, sorry, networking, VM kernel adapters. So this is the one. Okay, if you see here, FT logging disabled. So vMotion, we enabled it, FT login is disabled. So just select and click on edit, and fault tolerance login, just click OK. Okay, I'm enabling it. Okay, maybe I want to do it between these two. I'll do same for server 1 also. Click edit, fault tolerance. Okay, okay, I enabled FT in both the ESXi servers. Now come here, go to virtual machine. So this is server 2. Always when you are in cluster, right, better work like this, because if you see here, you don't see which VM belongs to which ESXi. Okay, you can see it, but it confuses you. It confuses little, right? So that's the reason I'm telling. Click here, go to virtual machine, or do right click here. All options will be available even here. Okay, go to fault tolerance, turn on fault tolerance. Insufficient bandwidth for vSphere fault tolerance logging. What NIC it has. So it is telling the NIC what you have is not sufficient. Okay. So then I'll do one thing. I'll try here. Right click. Okay. First I'll enable it. Click no. I'll click everywhere. I'll configure everywhere in all 4 servers. Click here. Virtual adapter. Get it. Okay. Server 3. We'll do here as well. Just click edit. So now I enabled FT in all the networks, right? Now I'll see. Go to virtual machine. Right click. Fault tolerance. turn on fault tolerance. Insufficient bandwidth for vSphere fault tolerance logging in. Okay, I give an okay. The data store. Actually, it is not listing data stores also. Okay, let me tell you theoretically, maybe practical, I'll show you what is happening. I don't know, I'm not able to see data store also. So first understand the theoretical, okay, what is fault tolerance exactly? Okay, fault tolerance, FT. So maybe practically not that important, but when in the interviews, right, they usually ask what is the difference between HA and FT. Okay, FT, fault tolerance. Okay, so understand. So here, this is my ESXi1, for example, server 1. Okay, server 1, and it has 2 VMs. And this is my ESXi2, where I have only one VM. Okay, VM1, VM2, and here I have one VM. Okay, so this both I added under the cluster and I enabled HA between them, HA. So for some reason, if this is failed, okay, the VMs, both the VMs will migrate here. Okay, so this is VM1, this is VM2. Okay, VM1 and VM2, which are from ESXi1, but they are in the down state. I mean, shutdown. They are down. Okay, so to avoid this kind of problem, okay, to avoid this kind of problem, HA will be there. There is no issue. So now you see the second case with FT, I'll tell you. So I have a server 1, I have a server 2, I have a VM1 and VM2. So here I have VM. For best purpose, right, VM1, VM2, I'll say this as a VM3, okay, for better understanding. Okay, now, so all good. I have enabled HA, I have enabled DRS. Okay, this is under cluster. So we understand these three, right? What is cluster and how to enable HA and DRS and what happens. Okay, we understand everything. But here, to avoid this problem, right, what I'll do, I will enable FT on VM1, I will enable FT on VM2, I will enable FT on VM3. Okay, to enable this, we understand, right? We should go to networking. We should go to networking and VM kernel port group, VM kernel port group. In that, you have seen that VMK0 port group, right? Go there, select this, click edit and enable FT. This is what we did it. You have to do it on both the ESXi servers. So whenever you create FT, right, what I'll do, I'll create one dummy VM. So I'll say there is a name actually, same exact VM. Okay, one exact VM will get create here. Okay, this is VM1 and this is VM2. Actually, within ESXi also we can create, but I'll tell you why we don't create. So VM3 will come here. So if this ESXi go down, right, if both VM and the exact VM, there is some name, good name for that, reciprocal, something is there. Okay, so this VM, whatever you have, okay, this VM, whatever you have, exactly it will go to the VM1. The VM1, exactly whatever we are doing here, this will copy to VM1. VM2, whatever we do exactly, this will create VM2. VM3, whatever we do here, exactly will come here, VM3. So simple, I'm telling you. So one duplicate VM, one backup VM, we are creating under ESXi2, ESXi1. With this is actually, I could not do it. First it asks for data store. We have to select the second server data store. Then we have to give the second server ESXi IP. Then this IP, this VM will get created. So for any reason, now you see the blue one is actual VM which we are working, and this another red color, whatever color, right? This is the backup VM. Okay. Now you think this ESXi gone down. Okay. This ESXi gone down, for example, this ESXi gone down. In that case, what I'll do? Okay, in this case, what I'll do, when this ESXi is down, so when this is down, the VMs will migrate without any doubt. The VM1 will come here. The VM2 come here. So this is VM1 and this is VM2, and they both are in down state. They are in down, but no need to worry because this already VMs are there, right? VM1 and VM2, they will work without any problem. Okay, this is the concept of FT. But if you see, we need lot of storage, lot of RAM, lot of CPUs, lot of everything. We need lot of everything, right? So if you have a sufficient, if you are ready to spend more, I mean, on the storage, more on the RAM and more on the hard disk, so you have to buy one powerful server. So two powerful servers, and then you create ESXi in that, and you add that to vCenter, and then you enable this FT, HA, DRS, everything. So nothing will happen. Somewhere your VM will be without downtime. Your VM will be working always fine. You understand FT, right? FT means, so here the thing is gone down, the VM, okay. So the ESXi gone down, the VM migrated to second ESXi, but this is down. But when until you make this upright, this VM1 will see always between these two, right? There is kind of again heartbeat signal kind of thing between these two. So whenever this go down, right, immediately this will come and this will start acting like a actual VM. Okay, we call it as active and standby. Active and standby. Standby. Always one VM is active, one VM, same VM is active. I mean standby, the backup VM. So we have two VMs. So this is actually we created whenever we enabled FT, the FT created another VM. So which is become standby now. So this is the active VM, this is the standby VM, right? So standby VM, always standby VM, always it is kind of a sleep mode. So whatever, suppose if something happens to the active VM, so then the standby VM come to the picture and it will start work, right? Understanding? Confusing? Nothing. So yesterday I said HA, right? So in HA, we have a problem. Suppose for any reason, ESXi failed, the VMs will migrate and there it will be down. It will have some downtime. So to avoid that, if you enable one more option, FT, so it will give, okay, like no, without downtime, you can use that VMs with the help of FT. Okay, so there are differences, like mostly the question is like difference between HA and FT, most different HA and FT. Okay, so first thing, so here first only difference is in HA, if any ESXi fails, for example, any ESXi fails, okay, any ESXi fails, the VMs migrate from ESXi to another ESXi to another ESXi. But FT, when the VM fails, okay, so why VM fail is like FT don't care. Like if you go and delete that VM also, it is failed for that. If a ESXi failed, the VM will fail, even that is a fail for FT. Okay, if VM fails, the standby VM comes up and works without downtime. Without downtime. When VM fails, the standby VM comes up and works without downtime. Okay, so here there is a downtime. There is a downtime for the VMs, but here there is no downtime. There is no downtime to the VMs, at least to the VMs. Okay, but very costly. I don't think even we cannot do successful FT configuration in our setup because FT need a separate license. So it's somewhere now it is asking for next, right? When you go next somewhere it will look for that license also. But I'll check once. Okay, I'll check and let you know. Maybe if possible, we'll configure in the next class. Any question here on FT? Fault tolerance. For theoretical purpose, I'll give you a short notes also. Just prepare and remember how to enable FT. Okay, just you have seen here, right? So go to particular VM. First, you have to enable FT on the ESXi VM kernel port group. Then right click on the VM. Maybe I'll go here. Right click on the VM. So then go to fault tolerance. Turn on fault tolerance. So it is telling some bandwidth is insufficient. I don't know. Okay, just give yes, but it has to list all the data stores actually. Okay, let me check. I'll tell you, right? I'll tell you that. So next it will ask for select host. Next, ready to complete. First, we have to give the data store. Then we have to select the host, which server it has to migrate. I mean, sorry, in which server it has to create, and then ready to complete. It's once you click on finish, it will be done. But at the time of click on finish, right, it will look for the FT license and all. But we'll see one video also, YouTube video. Maybe if I found some good video, right, short video, I will share that video also. How did they enable FT and how did they configure? So like that. Mostly you don't get much videos on VMware. So, but I'll try to get something. Okay. Any question here? Okay. I'll take one more topic. Okay. Important topic. Thin and thick provisioning. Okay. Thick provisioning. Very interesting concept. Thin provisioning. thin provisioning, thick provisioning and thin provisioning. Okay. So I'll take one ESXi server. It's okay. If you listen very carefully, you'll understand. It's a very simple topic, but a bit, it will confuse you a bit. So I have a ESXi server. Okay, I have a ESXi server and I have a hard disk of, for example, 1 TB hard disk I have. For example, I have 1 terabyte hard disk. Okay, just assume in this 1 terabyte, I used 100 GB for ESXi. Okay, I'll write here. I have 1 TB hard disk. In that 100 GB, I'm using for ESXi. Okay, some 250 GB I'm using for, suppose I have multiple VMs, 1, 2, 3, 4 VMs are there, for example. 250 GB I have VM1 and another 250 GB I have VM2 and 200 GB I have VM3. VM3. How much is done? 500, 600, 600 and 200, 800. So 800 GB is completed. I have remaining 200 GB free. Okay. So only 3 VMs are there. Just take out one. So now I have only 200 GB. So I want a VM4, but the requirement is, this is specific to hard disk, requirement is, I want 500 GB hard disk. But really how much we have? 200 GB hard disk, but I want 500 GB hard disk. With thin provisioning, it is possible you can create 500 GB hard disk while creating the VM. But thing is, so what I'll do when the VM4 is done, actually I give 500 GB hard disk, but the thing is, I'm going to install OS in it, which is 50 GB, and I'm going to keep some data 50 GB and the remaining 400 GB for future purpose, I want to keep it. Future purpose, I want to keep it. So total 500 GB, I am planning like this on the 4th VM. So now I know that I have 200 GB, but how much really I need? I need only 100 GB only. If you see here, OS some 50 GB occupy, some other data I have, which is 50 GB. Actually, it is occupy 100 GB. And for remaining 400 GB, he has a plan, right? Suppose if I create a VM today, I have a plan. What I am thinking, I'll get some data in the month of August. I'll get some data in the month of September. I'll get some data in the month of December. Something like that, I know. So I'll get some data. Because of that, I reserved some 400 GB. Because of that, I reserved 400 GB. Okay, I have 50 GB, I have 50 GB, I have 400 GB. Right? So now, if you see really you need 500 GB now, really no. Okay, in this kind of situation, we can take a chance with the concept of thin provisioning. Okay, thin provisioning. So now I will, whenever I creating a VM, right, I'll give 500 GB and I'll create the VM, I'll continue with, but actually how much is there? Actually 200 GB is there, right? But I given 500 GB, I give 200 GB and so 50 GB I use for 50 GB I use for OS and 50 GB I use for data. Still I have 100 GB free, but when you open the VM, right, it will show 400 GB free because you selected 500 GB. But this kind of situation, we have to be very careful because suppose in next day itself, you have to copy so much of data. In that kind of situation, don't take a chance. Okay. You know that in runtime, you get the data. You may or may not get the data, or you have a plan. Like now we are in June, right? It is June 30 today. Okay. Suppose we know that July 30, we get some data and August 30, we get some data. So till August, we can manage. So by that time, we will add some more hard disk and we will assign this, we will fulfill this 500 GB there. Okay. So we have a plan to add more hard disk, more LUNs, and somehow we want to fulfill it. Okay. So in this case, right, definitely we can give, in this case, we can use this thin provisioning, but suppose you have a, immediately you have to occupy, immediately you need 500 GB, then go for thick provisioning. Okay. Now I'll tell in a simple words. Suppose you are creating a VM and you have to give, for example, 200 GB. You have to give, for example, 200 GB VM. And you have a plan to use entire 200 GB immediately. In that case, you go with the thick provisioning. And suppose, like just somebody asked you to give some 200 GB, but they use only 50, 60 GB, and they may or may not use the 200 GB. In that case, you can go with the thin provisioning. Okay, in that case, you can go with the thin provisioning. Okay, this is the major difference. Okay, so to see this, right, we will see one example, one practical. So you see here, I'm going to create, like we'll see 100.4, go to summary or go to data store. It has 179 GB free space is there, but I want to create one 500 GB VM on this. Okay, I can create with the thin provisioning. You see this, how I'll create. Okay, so by default, it will take thick provisioning. Okay, by default. Now right click, new virtual machine, click next. So I'll create one, for example, RHL 92. Okay, click next. So I'm creating in 100.4. Yes, click next. So data store. Yes, there is a data store. We have 179 GB. Yes, fine. Click next. So this one as it is, click next. Guest OS, Linux. So Red Hat 9. Okay, Red Hat 9. Click next. So now you see, I want to give, so this is taken 16 GB, but I want to give 500 GB. What it is telling? If you click here, so see the disk capacity specified is greater than the amount of available disk. That's it, right? So you just scroll down, disk provisioning is there, right? You go here, instead of thick, you leave it. Okay, there are two thicks. Okay, thin provision, select thin provision. Instead of thick, select thin provision. Okay, instead of this, select thin provision, click next. See, it is allowing now. It threw an error before. Now it is allowing because you selected thin provision. You selected a thin provision. Okay, click finish. If you observe, I have 179 GB free space, but I created 500 GB disk with the help of thin provision. Okay, and you see once again, I created it, right? But how much space it is showing? Still it is showing 179 GB. But you know what happening? What is happening here? It is like now you created, you used 500 GB. You are planning to use 500 GB. Now, if you install OS, for example, if you install a OS, it need 10 GB, then 10 GB will occupy. Only 10 GB will occupy. And later you copy some 50 GB data, it occupy 50 GB more. So like that in the runtime, okay, it is filling the data. Okay. So now you see, okay, it will confuse you a little. Just concentrate. Okay, leave about normal disk and all. Sometime we'll see thin provision. So this is my disk. Okay, this is my disk, 500 GB. Okay, suppose if you give thick provision, thick provision, 500 GB, then entire 500 GB occupied. You can't create any more VM on that. Okay. But if I give thin provision, okay, thin provision. Okay. Now I can say in thick provision, right? The entire 500 GB occupied, entire, everything is occupied. For example, you used only 50 GB, but you used only 50 GB. Remaining is empty, but you cannot use for anything else. You cannot use for anything else. But same case, if you take it for thin provision, okay, I'll change the color here. I'll take the, so this is thin provision, okay. Now I created thin provision. So now it is 500 GB only, but only 50 GB to occupy, only 50 GB to occupy. Remaining 450 GB, it show it as free. But here, if you go, it show as 0 GB free. So because we are dedicatedly 500 GB we given to a VM in the case one, but in the case two, okay, we given as a thin provision. So until you really fill it, okay, until you really fill it, it won't occupy. Okay, the remaining space, it will show always empty. I mean free, right? Always it shows free. Same like this. So in this case, I have one VM. I given 500 GB as a thick provision, and I occupied only 50 GB, but it is showing 0 GB free. See, in the same case, if I have a thin provision, so 500 GB, the remaining 450 GB is free. So this is thin and thick provision, right? So there are lazy zeroed, eagerly.
Voice not getting.
Sorry, guys. Something, it got disconnected and come back. Okay, so see this. Now I have two VMs, right? In the server 2. In the server 2, I have two VMs. So one VM I given a thick provision. One VM I given a thick provision. So here it is actually 94 GB we given, and it is showing used space 94 GB. That means, but really, did I use all 94 GB? No, I used hardly 40 GB in it. Remaining 50 GB is free, but it won't show it as a free. It shows all the space is used. But if you see the second rel 9.2, right? We given 500 GB, but used space is 0 byte. Now, if you install some, it will show some 16 GB used. If you copy some data, it will show something. Okay. But you have to be very careful. Like now it is showing as 500 GB. If you go and copy 500 GB, you will get into problem. Okay. You should not do that. Only you should be very careful. The admin should be very careful in which situation to create this thin Trojan. So this is one advantage in the VMware virtual machines. Okay, which is not possible in the normal Windows and Linux. Just an advantage. For interview purpose, important. For interview purpose, yes, it is important. Okay, it is important. So any question here? You know, I can go and create 100 virtual machines by selecting thin Trojan. I'll give 500 GB because entire space is free. I can create some 50, 100, 200 because I'll give thin Trojan and I'll create it. So everywhere I'm using only 0 byte, right? I'm not installing anything, just dummy VMs I'll create. Even if you select thick Trojan, even dummy VMs also you cannot create more than the space what we have. Confusing, right? But go through it once, definitely you will understand. Okay, just go through the video and try to understand more. Try to understand more. Okay, this is thick and thin Trojan. Don't go very in depth. What is eagerly zeroed, lazy zeroed, and all. Not required. It will confuse you some more. Okay, this will go to disk level and all, but really not required. But understand thick Trojan and thin Trojan very well, very well. Okay, so I'll go with one more concept. Right click. Migrate done, cloning done, fault tolerance done, template is done, compatibility is not required. I was thinking one more. What is that? vSAN. But vSAN, I don't have any information now. I'll tell you. Okay, networking. Okay, I want to go to networking concept. Okay. I'll do one thing. I have another meeting actually now. I'll start this networking very fresh tomorrow. Okay, but again, it will confuse you a lot. I'll try to tell you very slow and with a lot of diagrams. Okay, so I want you to complete till now. Okay, all whatever I discussed, all are very important, either for practical or interview. Okay, today FT, fault tolerance, and this thin Trojan and thick Trojan, usually they ask. Okay, in the interviews. So that's why I want to give some theory on that. That's why I was talking about them. Okay, they are very important, very important. Okay, so we'll do tomorrow networking. So kind of it will confuse a lot. So what I'll do, I'll take one server, our vSphere web client, and I will take, so how to give multiple OS IPs. We know in Windows, right? If I connect NIC1 and NIC2, I can give IP to NIC1 and NIC2 separately. We will get 2 IPs. This and all we have seen. And in Linux, we know how to get multiple IPs. But when it comes to ESXi, I'm really not bothered about ESXi. I am really bothered about the VMs. How to give multiple IPs to the VM. Okay, multiple IPs. When you connect to 2 different networks, how to give IPs, okay, multiple IPs to the network. Okay, so as I joined a little late today, so I'll drop here. So I'll do one thing tomorrow, sharp 7 o'clock, we will sit, and I need some more time tomorrow to understand. So I'll talk more, theoretically I'll talk more, and practically I'll show more. So we have entire setup ready. So we will look at this networking part tomorrow. Okay, so far I want you all to complete. So from my side, pending things are networking and the data stores. We did not create multiple data stores. So either I'll try to cover tomorrow or day after tomorrow. If not, when we go to the actual FCSAN class, right there, I'll try to cover this, how to create multiple data stores and how to use it, and all I'll tell. Okay, in the FCSAN. So we have a FCSAN class, right there. I'll try to explain very properly. right? So, any question? Okay, then. Okay, see you all tomorrow at 7 o'clock. So come with fresh mind tomorrow, and very important and a little confused. Thank you, guys. Good night. See you all tomorrow. Bye.